People often talk about truth being stranger than fiction. What they don't tell you is that it's also far more terrifying. Of course, what I'm about to tell you isn't the truth. If it was, then I wouldn't be allowed to share it at all. The non-disclosure agreements that I signed, the government officials and their threats, mean that there is no way I could ever tell the truth. Never tell you what happened to me in that place, way back in 1999. But if I was desperate, if I was sick of hiding and of keeping this stuff to myself, then I would share the truth in a book and disguise it as fiction. I could say in the introduction that all of this is made up when really it is the cold, terrifying truth of what I went through. I could do that, but of course, I never would. Would I? If I did decide to tell you what the government and even the restaurant company, PLC, already know, if I was going to reveal this stuff in the form of a story, to hide the fact that it is actually the truth, avoid the non-disclosure nonsense and get the word out there to the public, then it would probably start something like this, with something that sounds crazy, but which you could check right now with just a few keystrokes. Something that would show you right away that I'm not crazy, and that the things I say, even though they sound far-fetched, are absolutely genuine. What would you say, just for example, if I told you that in the British Isles, in the UK and Ireland, countries supposedly built on rationalist ideas, on clear-headed notions of science and industry, there are places where even today you aren't allowed to dig, to build upon, or in any way corrupt the land, for fear of disturbing things. Disturbing things that, according to that same Western, clear-headed rationalism, shouldn't even exist. What would you say if I told you that the British Isles is a place where multi-million-pound projects have been cancelled, motorways diverted, and court cases fought because by law, decided in the courts and written into statute, it is forbidden to disturb a fairy mound or fairy tree? Sounds ridiculous, right? As if there would be actual laws passed with the intention of preventing supermarket chains from building somewhere, or roads from being constructed because their plan happens to intrude upon a tiny pile of rocks, or an old oak tree where the mythical fairies are supposed to live. Maybe in the 13th century, but not today. Definitely not today. It sounds crazy, but it isn't. It sounds like fiction, but it's not. Nor is it just a piece of quaint and idiosyncratic folklore that people nod to and acknowledge just for fun, protecting the beliefs in the same way that television companies in the UK protect the idea of Father Christmas by always speaking as if he is 100% real before the watershed at 9 p.m. when any children who might be confused or upset by discussions should be safely in bed, or at least not tuning in. This is not a myth for tradition's sake. There are other reasons. In Ireland, fairy forts are protected as national monuments and considered to be part of the country's history. Interesting that this section of make-believe history is protected, when so many other historical sites now have developments built on top of them. In 1999, a £100 million motorway project joining Newmarket on Fergus and Ennis was diverted to incorporate a fairy bush, mostly because a well-regarded folklorist warned the local councils and government of the supposedly dire consequences that would befall them and the area as a whole if the bush was disturbed. Look it up. I dare you. Look it up and see that it's true. Then come back and ask yourself what that tells you about the rest of my story. Once you've asked yourself that, ask yourself something else. Why? Why would actual laws be passed to stop people building there if it was just folklore? Why would governments and businesses throw away millions of pounds for something that belongs in a Disney movie? Is it because they really care about the poor, innocent little fairies? Or is it because they're scared? While you're fact-checking me and doing your research into what I'm talking about, look up the word fae or faithful. What you'll discover is that most of the popular ideas about fairies were invented in the Victorian era. Sanitized visions of far older and far darker mythologies that were not fringe beliefs, but endemic within the societies of the time. It is no coincidence that the new cute and friendly fairies emerged at a time when unprecedented numbers of people were moving from the villages and rural areas into the cities, where brickwork, gaslight, and poverty framed new terrors, and those that resided in the wilderness could be tamed and made more pleasant and remote. It is also interesting to contrast the vision of these beings presented in the cities to the older traditions maintained by those who remained in the rural areas. For much of their history and folklore, fae, or fairy folk, were not cute little butterfly-winged Tinkerbells. The fairies of folklore were never cute. They were the fae, and the fae were to be feared. Rather than the dainty green ballerinas of cartoon, the creatures depicted in most medieval and Renaissance visions, the same creatures now protected by law are ugly, warped little things. Humanoid, but far from human. They are creatures that lurk in hollows and bracken watching men with tiny malevolent eyes, and who, if crossed, will think nothing of taking from their larger neighbors anything they hold precious. The older stories speak of the fae dragging objects, pets, and even humans back to their lairs, to keep, to torture, and even to consume. The governments know this. They pretend their laws are for our amusement, but really, they are for our protection. But of course, even those laws can be broken if there is enough money at stake, and the right bribe falls into the right person's pocket. As for the project joining Newmarket on Fergus and Enos, it was initially set to go ahead, despite the folklorist protests. The plan was only scrapped, and all of the money and possible investment wasted after archaeological and surveying work was conducted around the bush, and a series of drawings were presented to the council. Once they had been seen, the decision was overturned. What the survey drawings revealed has never been confirmed. A request for documents under the Freedom of Information Act has so far yielded no results, with several key documents claimed to have been lost or conveniently destroyed in an office fire that took place in 2006, a year after the request for the drawings to be made public was made. Not that this hushing has stopped people talking or halted the rumors. Rumors of what the drawings and surveys showed beneath that innocuous-looking bush. Whispers about a network of underground warrens and tunnels. Said by one supposed witness to be as complex and interwoven as an ant's nest, but of a size that could only have been built by hares or very large rabbits. What the drawings really showed, we'll never know. But what we do know is that it was enough. That the job did not go ahead is a good thing. A specific fast food restaurant in Greenwood, Derbyshire, England, is no longer in operation. When it was, I was employed there. In most respects, it was just like any other place. We had a drive-through section, and our milkshake machine was out of service 10 months out of 12. In the 3 years that I worked at this particular place, I went from server and crew member to supervisor to manager, always letting management believe that I had designs on a long-term career within the fast food industry, when really what I had, designs on the larger paycheck that came along with these different roles. It wasn't the greatest job. There was a lot of grease, a lot of patience testing customers, and a whole host of lazy teenage employees who, somewhat understandably, just wanted to be paid as much money as possible to do as little work as possible. Turning up for morning shifts hideously hungover, and trying to get off late shifts early so they could head to the bar and begin work on the next one. Despite the endemic apathy, however, most of the time, the shifts worked fine, and against the tide of laziness, I would just about manage to get them to do everything that needed doing to an acceptable standard. Everything, that is, except the bins and the lockup. I'm not entirely sure when the rumors started. They definitely weren't there when I first joined. But I do remember within my first few months of working there that people were refusing to go out to the back of the restaurant at night, though the reasons why remained somewhat sketchy. I always assumed that it was just down to the fact that organizing and sometimes cleaning the bins was a filthy and deeply unpleasant job. At my previous job working at another fast food joint, I had actually been forced to climb inside the bins with a pressure hose to clean the insides out. A job that, as well as being nauseatingly wretched, was also, considering my age at the time, probably illegal. Mostly, the reason given at this place was put down to noises. The bin area, I should explain, was a separate cage section at the back of the restaurant, which, again, by law, had to be kept at a designated distance from any food preparation area. This small, secluded patch of the car park, which was perhaps 4 or 5 meters by 6, was poorly lit and contained around a dozen massive steel drum litter bins, into which all of the day's waste needed to be poured. The problem with the area, especially at night, was that it backed onto the woods. This being England, and the wildlife of England being what it is, there was no threat from any animals. There was nothing lurking in the woods any bigger than a badger or a fox, and anyone complaining about animals would get the inevitable jokes about being gnawed to death by a squirrel or attacked by a rabid hedgehog. There might, on occasion, be the odd stray dog out there, but even that wasn't anything to really worry about. Yet, several members of staff, who would happily take out the bags full of waste in the daylight, refused to even entertain the idea of going out there at night. I remember around 6 months into my first year at the place, asking a friend named John what all the fuss was about. His answer wasn't exactly clear, but something about the way in which he told it made me begin to think twice about going out there myself.
It's weird,
He had said, stuffing a handful of french fries into his mouth in an attempt to soak up some of the previous night's alcohol.
I mean, it's just a set of bins. It's scary about that. But it's like, when you go out there, even when you're on your own, you're not.
Reading those words off the page, one might think that this was said for dramatic effect, that John had put on some mock deep voice or done his best Vincent Price impression to make the whole scenario sound incredibly spooky. He didn't. In fact, he said those words with the same matter-of-fact nonchalance that he might if he was explaining how the post-mix pump worked for the soft drinks, or which setting to use on the fryers.
Like, you look at the trees and they just seem to have huddled together, like one big black mass. And I don't know, it's like you don't want to look away from them because, well, because it feels like they're watching you. Or maybe not them, but something in them. It's hard to explain, but you can feel it.
For a while, that was was all I got in terms of an explanation. It wasn't until a few months later, when another team member, a girl called Tina, who I am friends with even to this day, said something similar, but added that it seemed like the forest was closer than it should be. You'll be dragging them big bin bags around and trying to lift them into the metal bins, and I don't know, you just feel it behind you. Like someone was watching you, or like there was someone close to you. I remember once shouting to see if anyone answered. I just stood there listening, and all I could hear was this real low rustling, like something moving in the leaves. At first, I thought maybe it was a fox or something, but then I looked into one of the big bins, and the bag was moving, as if it was pulled in loads of different directions. I remember just looking at it and thinking I'd have to report it, in case it was rats. But then...